Greetings, I'm John Spirit. You'd never have thought putting 37 different essentia into a Thaumatorium was so hard, and welcome to Ultimate Alchemy Recap Supershorts. Once you've beaten the Wither once, which we have done, you can slap a Nether star into a crucible with one of every single type of essentia to make 32 Nether stars. This is why we set up a stack of Carpenters 32 high, which use Aqua Salus Mundus and 2 types of essentias to make another type of essentia. Because of this, we have the ability to make every file of essentia in the game. So theoretically, using Thaumcraft's Thaumatorium, we could automate the production of Nether stars. If you're wondering how you beat the Wither and get your Wither skeleton skulls, you can get Wither skeleton skulls by pouring industrial grade evil onto skeleton skulls, and you can get the industrial grade evil from drops of evil, which you can get from pulverizing TNT. I highly suggest using auxiliary sieves to make sure you get as many drop of evils from your TNT as you can. Arch used protection 4, Terra Steel armor, and a Terra Steel sword to kill the Wither. It was very easy. I have no footage of this event. To actually put all of the essences into the Thaumatorium, we figured the best way to do that would be an emptying essentia transfuser. As I've mentioned before, the filling and emptying essentia transfusers draw essentia from, or put essentia into, blocks that are within a 16 by 16 radius of the direction it's facing. So sort of a cone. Not a cone, it's a cube. So this emptying essentia transfuser can draw from, for example, this warded jar. It can also draw from a warded jar 16 blocks away in this direction and in this direction. So if all of these warded jars are full of every kind of essentia for the Nether star, then this emptying essentia transfuser will draw that essentia out and put it into the Thaumatorium. The question is, how do you get those essentia in the first place? And that is the challenge that we went through when we made this build. You'll notice that we have 5 filling essentia transfusers here. Each of them is connected to a warded jar. Each of those warded jars is on top of a mechanical user. Each of these 4 mechanical users has 9 of the 37 essentias. So these 4 mechanical users each have, these 4 mechanical users combined have 36 types of essentia, which is almost 37. So the basic central idea of our system is to have the mechanical users turn on when we're making Nether stars and right-click the files into the warded jars. The warded jars will be emptied by these filling essentia transfusers and put into these warded jars. And then the emptying essentia transfuser will draw that essentia out and put it in the Thaumatorium. By the way, the Thaumatorium is a crucible and 2 alchemical constructs on top of it. Apply Salus Mundus to make the multi-block like every multi-block in Thaumcraft. The crucible requires a heat source, but not water. The main problem that presents itself in this system is that every one of these files includes 10 essentia. So if you have these mechanical users dump 10 of every essentia, you'll have enough essentia to run 10 recipes. So our crafting recipe turns 10 Nether stars into 320 Nether stars. That way we don't overfill the warded jars. We just have one crafting recipe that uses 10 Nether stars and 10 of every essentia to make 320 Nether stars. Okay, now how does this crazy system work? For example, why aren't the mechanical users dumping things into the warded jar? When the crafter dumps a Volatus Essentia file and 10 Nether stars into this mechanical user, those 10 Nether stars will be drawn into the Thaumatorium immediately, but the Volatus Essentia will not get used because the user requires a redstone pulse. That means that Volatus Essentia will stay inside this user until we apply a redstone pulse to the mechanical user. And while it's in there, we can use an integrated inventory reader to read the count of that inventory, or if the inventory is not empty. And in fact, that's what we're using. We have a variable card here that just checks if the inventory of the mechanical user is not empty and sends a redstone signal into this Ender IO redstone conduit. Note, you can't put a redstone writer directly in a redstone conduit. It'll break things really badly. Just use redstone to get the signal into the conduits. The redstone conduits are made to work with redstone anyway. When there's an orange signal, i.e. there's a file of Volatus Essentia in the mechanical user, that orange signal basically tells the entire rest of the system it's time to go. When the orange signal is on, these redstone conduits will turn on these mechanical users, and they'll start dumping files into the warded jars. They'll dump their files one by one, and all of that essentia will be slowly output by the filling essentia transfusers, and then the next file will be dumped. The empty files are extracted on brown pretty quickly, but you may be asking yourself, well, if the files are removed from the mechanical user, won't they immediately be refilled by these interfaces that you have supplying the files? That's why the Ender IO conduits that pull from the interfaces are only active without a redstone signal. So when there's a Volatus Essentia in this mechanical user, none of the Ender conduits will be able to extract files from interfaces. You can do this by using the signal color option, which only appears when you're in a redstone mode that requires a signal. And that's why there's a little orange band around that Ender IO conduit. So, when there's a Volatus Essentia in the mechanical user, these 4 users will dump their files into the warded jars, and at the same time, they won't receive any files from these interfaces. That means eventually, all 4 mechanical users will be completely empty, which is why we have inventory readers on every one of them from underneath. Those inventory readers check if the inventories are empty, and then AND them together, and if all the inventories are empty, we trigger the yellow signal on the Ender conduits. The yellow signal goes to the mechanical user and causes it to place a Volatus Essentia in the warded jar. And that'll mean that 37 types of Essentia have entered the warded jars. We do check for one other thing in the mechanical users. We also check if their inventories are full, i.e. every one of their slots has one item, at least one item in it, which is how the inventory full variable card works. If all 4 mechanical users have a full inventory, that means the system is ready for Nether stars. If it were missing an essentia, then these AND operators wouldn't fully finish. But once all 4 mechanical users are full, we have an AND variable card here that outputs a redstone signal to this crafter, which is set to be unlocked when there's a redstone signal on it. So right now, because the signal is true, the crafter is unlocked and can auto-craft a Nether star. This system is susceptible to only one major issue. What if 2 crafts come through at the same time? We're pretty sure that'll never happen because crafts create 320 Nether stars, and unless something requests 320 Nether stars, we will never be in a bad time. There are some small things we could do to fix that. I could check that the mechanical user inventory is not empty and add that to the condition. And maybe that way the crafter would only be able to craft 1 at a time, but I'm not sure. But it's not really an issue. The last thing we need is that when the Thaumatorium is finished, it spits out 32 Nether stars onto the ground, and the only way to pick those up effectively is with a hopper hawk. So we have a hopper hawk with an item frame putting Nether stars into this interface. All that's left is for us to see it in action. Let me run the craft for a Nether star, and as soon as it makes the Volatus Essentia, the Volatus Essentia should appear in this mechanical user. Now that it has appeared, the mechanical users are starting to output their fluids into the warded jars. Meanwhile, the Thaumatorium is starting to pull... I don't think it's actually starting to pull it in. What's going on? This warded jar is just having some trouble because it's dealing with being combined with the emptying essentia transfuser. The emptying essentia transfuser unfortunately draws 2 essentia, and since the Thaumatorium only takes 1, the essentia gets stuck in the tube unless you output it again. So we just combined it with this tube. But that means it has a lot of random suction problems, which are really annoying. But we're about to see the last file get used, and once it is used, the Nether Star Thaumatorium can really start running. You'll notice that all the mechanical users have refilled with their files, just like we expected them to. And this mechanical user is empty of its Volatus Essentia, because that has also been added to the system. So we can watch it slowly filling up with every single essentia. And once there are 37 essentia on the screen, the Nether stars will pop out onto the ground and be picked up by the hopper hawk. And that's our Nether star system. This was a doozy to make. Like, my god, was it a lot of work and a lot of troubleshooting. But hopefully what I've said makes sense. One of the major hiccups we had, which you can see happening in a certain way right now, is that because of the very large range of essentia transfusers and the fact that they'll pass through blocks, the essentia transfusers do unfortunately send their essentia into these warded jars. And the reason that we have the transfusers facing downward this way is so that they only fill and empty from these jars and never from the jars above, which they were doing. So the only way to fix this is for us to do something similarly janky here and have these filling essentia transfusers face upward, which is terrible and bad. But it would solve the problem. So yeah, I don't know. There. This emptying essentia transfuser will now actually... Okay, I guess it puts things in this vitreous jar. God, I hate everything. It's fine, it's enough. The vitreous doesn't matter. As long as all the other essentias go to the jars they need to go, it's fine. I want you to know that Arch was foolish enough to wear his headphones when he went to the kitchen to cook while I recorded this episode, so he has to hear me have a mental breakdown in front of you all. But I guess you have to hear it too, so everyone's cursed? But anyway, this system works great in general, as long as it's not filled with like 200 vials of earth. God, I'm gonna die. Why do we want to automate nether stars anyway? Partly because nether stars are required as an ingredient for true clay, but also because nether stars are required to make and use the nether star generator. And if you can run the nether star generator, then you can run the rainbow generator, a block which outputs 25 million RF per tick. We'll talk about that relatively soon, not in this episode, but soon enough. The nether star was also useful because it allowed us to make the dragon egg mill, which uses a dragon egg to produce 500 grid power. We ran into problems at some point because I had all this grid power, but apparently Arch doesn't automatically get it. In order to share grid power with someone else, you need to use the command XU power sharing. And if both of you agree to share with each other, then your grid power networks will be fully shared. And so that's why Arch has access to my 516 grid power. I think those are the main two things we made with nether stars, though. We also made a beacon so that we could do the Guardian of Gaia fight, which is something we'll talk about in the next episode when we discuss the Dragon Head. For now, that's it for today's episode. As always, if you have any comments that might help other viewers who are playing this mod pack, please feel free to put them in the comments, especially maybe you have something to say about using the Thaumatorium, or files, or essentia tubes. Unfortunately, since we've already recorded all these videos, we can't take those suggestions into account, but our viewers can. Anyway, see you in the next one.